Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Pagano, and I'm a board advisor for Hera and also the founder of Hera TV. I have a Hera friend that we want to introduce and interview. Her name is Tobi Rubinstein, and she's recently an author of a book. So, Tobi, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Yep. So let's go ahead and get started. So I understand that you have a brand new book out. Why don't you tell us the title and where can we find it?
Well, can I just put this in front of me, like so obnoxious, right?
There you go.
It's called The House of Faith and Fashion, What My Wardrobe Taught Me About God. It's available on my website, thehouseoffaithandfashion.com, but it's also available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Kindle.
Awesome.
Very excited that it's out.
So what made you decide to write a book? What inspired you to do this?
Well, I've been a resident of the House of Faith and Fashion my entire life, in which I will explain the combination of faith and fashion, which is two subjects that are normally actually opposing each other. Whereas fashion seems to be vain and vapid, and faith is, very, very spiritual. You never think these things actually gel, but being a resident and the builder of the House of Faith and Fashion, I beg to differ. I've been in the fashion industry now 40 plus years, long time.
Okay, that's great. Awesome.
Yeah, so I'm just going, I'm myself, you know what I mean? So
women do that. We do that.
yeah. I'm like, So I've been in the industry in top level positions of companies like, had to do with Victoria's Secret, JCPenney, Crunch Gyms, Nicole Miller. I even started a hip hop menswear company, and just for Kmart back in the day when hip hop was really, really king. So, I've been in the industry. I produced events for New York Fashion Week. I produced major fashion shows during New York Fashion Week. I closed Central Park South to have an event in the streets with horse and carriages. So I've been in the industry a long, long time. And my faith part is, I come from a very religious Jewish background. I went to an all-girls parochial school my entire life, and I continue to immerse myself within the knowledge of Judaism. I was a rabbi's wife, and then I actually became ordained myself. So the combination is quite unique, and I put it to pen. The book is really divided into 5 chapters. One chapter is on fashion, one chapter is on jewelry, one chapter is on arts, one is on beauty and style, and the other one is on influencers. And they're between 12 to 15 essays per chapter, all involving from the Metropolitan Museum of Art costume exhibit, which originates, they had a wonderful exhibit called Heavenly Bodies, which is one of their best attended exhibits ever. And I beg to differ, the Heavenly Bodies is really an origin from the Bible, where God describes the high priest costume, which is the most elaborate costume, haute couture outfit imaginable. So God is the first couturier. I talk about my love of Manolo Blahniks, but I also talk about, in that essay, I talk about that there is a holy purpose for shoes. And I want what people to understand is that they can elevate beauty to a spiritual level. They are not necessarily void of each other. And this book is filled with tons and tons of examples. So that is what the book is about.
Wow. That's the first time I've seen where you can fuse fashion and faith together.
Yes.
I've never even heard of it before. So, but have you really pretty much like lived it all your life to some extent, but all of a sudden you realize that this is what I've been doing?
No, I really lived it all my life. Like I said, I reside and I built the House of Faith and Fashion, and I really lived it all my life. I just decided to put it pen to paper in order for me to just express what that really is. I know that I created my own space, so therefore I can't say, is there anybody else doing something like this? There isn't. Yeah. And there you know, there's a lot of fear factor and judgment when it comes to creating your own space, especially for women. You know, it's hard enough to be a woman, but in this particular world, but then to, you know, carve out your own niche and say, you know, this is one of a kind is, you know, is an extra leap of faith, pardon the expression.
Yeah.
But the truth is, what drove me, or actually, you know, the final thing that drove me to take this and put it in a book form, is that in December I was diagnosed with malaria, which became ovarian cancer stage 4.
Wow.
Many women are, you know, many women are affected by this. Many women are, you know, many women around the world are affected by some sort of, you know, cancer, one way or the other, whether it be breast cancer or ovarian cancer, uterine cancer. And you know, when you're told that, and when you're, you know, when you're diagnosed and then you're told that by your doctor, you know, it's thankfully not a death sentence, but in your head it's a death sentence. And I said, you know what, I think I finally have to write this book. You know, God is trying to tell me, you better, you know, now's the time. Now, I took this as a sign from God that said, you know, Tobi, this was your purpose all along, and you haven't been listening to me. So
Wow.
I'm going to give you a new test now, and you're going to listen to me. And I did.
Wow.
This was the extra added punch that I needed to be able to do this book.
Wow. That's impressive. So how's your health? How's your health?
Well, thank God you're talking to me now. I am, you know, thank God I'm here having this conversation with you, Mary. So I know I can't take these things that I thought were for granted. I can no longer take them for granted. So, you know, my health today is good. You know, you're talking to me 8 weeks post surgery. They removed all the cancer. I've had, you know, the initial chemotherapy treatments. I only have one more to go. And I'm okay, Mary, I'm okay. My eyebrows grew back. You know, what can I tell you? You know, between woman to woman, this cancer attacks your womanhood from the inside and outside. So it's something which I addressed in the book as well. There's a lot of essays in here about how to redefine beauty as a woman, how to redefine your sense of how you feel about yourself, because it really assaults it assaults you as a woman. I mean, like nothing else I've ever encountered before, aside from the inside, because it attacks your reproductive organs.
Right.
Outside, it attacks everything, which then goes to your self-esteem and your beauty and what you really think about beauty and what we've been indoctrinated into thinking about beauty. It's a get real disease.
Exactly. So what was the most valuable lesson that you learned about what beauty is going through that whole process?
I really believe that my most valuable lesson is the definition of outer beauty and inner beauty, and how I never really understood. I was always so fixated on the outer beauty. I was so like, let me run for Botox and I look this and whatever. I mean, really, if I could tell you that I would have rather have had a facelift than have this particular thing happen to me, to be totally honest. I mean, it attacks what you see in the mirror. And then all of a sudden you go, well, wait a second, Tobi still lives inside. Tobi still resides in the house of faith and fashion internally. So let's understand that she's still there. This is just a veneer, and it will come back. And if it doesn't come back the way it is, it's okay, because you're still the same person, and you really have to love yourself from within. And believe it or not, when you do that, Mary, it shines out, and you have this air about you that you're more appealing when you feel better about yourself on the inside. So that was a very powerful lesson that I learned. And, it took me 62 years to learn this lesson. I mean, because we are surrounded, assaulted, completely like indoctrinated into just the physical beauty of what you see ageless. I can't even age correctly. Everybody looks better than me. This actress, that actress. You know, it never stops. It never ends. As you get older, it doesn't get better. It gets worse. So that's what I learned, Mary.
That, you know what, that is such a powerful lesson, and it'd be awesome for the younger girls to see this and understand it. I mean, I'm here in Miami and I see you selfies out the gazoo, and it's disheartening to watch it because that's not where the real beauty lies. So thank you very much. So in your book, you talk about um, uh, uh, some of the empowered woman, right? So what were some of the lessons from Faith and Fashion in your book that, you know, leads towards female empowerment?
Well, you know, the Bible is full of the most powerful females that you could possibly imagine, and I address them all in my book. I mean, you know, well, let's start with Queen Esther. I mean, she is a powerhouse. She went from a beauty pageant contestant to the queen of 117 and turned the fate of an entire nation. And she did it so elegantly and so modestly and so like just royally. And we can talk about Miriam, Miriam, if it wasn't for Miriam, there would be no exodus of Egypt. It was the women that were enthralled with God taking the Jews out of slavery and bringing them into a new land. It was the women that foresaw how great this was going to be. It wasn't the men. The men actually in slavery in Egypt, the men were very, very depressed, and they didn't even want to have relations with their wives. They did not want to have families. It was the women that seduced these men in the orchards and said, no, you can't do this. They beautified themselves in the mirrors. They got their act together and they said, no, we're going to have children. We're going to continue the generations because that's what women do. Women are powerhouses. So I address all these women, but within my own life, you know, I have a chapter of influencers, and I talk about real influencers. I don't talk about people that, you know, they have X amount of followers on Instagram and therefore they can tell me what to do. I talk about real women that have real influence on other people's lives, which then entails have influence, you know, it just goes on and on and on. One of my powerfully good, really endearing women's stories is I have an essay called Joseph's Coat, you know, Joseph's Technicolor Dream Coat, which actually was a coat, like that a coat did exist. And I said, I have my own coat that actually fortified me through my journey of having cancer and then writing this book. I put together all of my closest and dearest friends. There's 14 powerhouse women that are just from doctors, lawyers, therapists, real estate moguls that all every day pushed me to write this book, to make sure that I was okay during chemotherapy, that I slept, that I ate, that, I mean, just every day was powerful women just going, Toby, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. And I did it. And if it wasn't for them and I call them my prayer warriors, because even before each chemotherapy treatment, the night before, we had a Zoom meeting and we had a prayer meeting, all of us. And we're talking about huge, I mean, big personalities in the media that just went, no, this is not about me and my ego. This is about you and helping another woman and keeping her afloat while she's going through a really bad time. And the outcome is this book, because so both in my faith and within my life, I'm so fortunate to have powerful women that could stand on their own 2 feet, that are, you know, don't need me, believe me. And they have really, really come to the aid of fortifying me to go through this particular time in my life.
Wow. The power of prayer is pretty great, isn't it?
Yes. It's everything. Going through this, I say it's, when they do your temperature, 98.6, that it's 98.6% is prayer when you're going through something like this. Everything else is just the doctors, the medicine, all that other stuff. Yeah, okay. But it's really that, yes. And I'm fortunate to have all these powerful women that have the same mindset as I do, which is also important, to surround yourself with friends and especially going through a crisis, that are on your same wavelength and that want the best for you. And women rally around women.
Yeah, they do.
Mhm.
They do.
Yes.
Which gets me to, I want to ask you a question about Hera, because, Marinella Mapuri, who's the founder and the CEO of Hera, is all about uplifting women around the world.
Yes.
And one of her big projects is to build a city for all genders, nationalities, religions, in honor of women. So what do you think would be in this city? If you lived in the city, what would be important for you as a woman leader?
What would be important to me is the idea of educating each person. I mean, especially if you're having multiple cultures, is to give everybody an education about all these multiple cultures instead of assuming that everybody knows everything. Because, ignorance can breed a lot of terrible things. And also can breed a lot of judgment that's unnecessary. Once you learn about somebody else's life and you can appreciate it, doesn't always necessarily mean you have to be it. But if you're knowledgeable about it and you respect it, that can make for a great world. I wish that example would happen in the greater world as opposed to just one city. So I would look for that, and I would probably call it, a cultural center in which you go to this place, and let's say you have a night of food, a night of art, a night of dance, whatever it is that particular. It's so interesting to learn things that way, and a night of fashion, of course. What else can I say? I'll do it. I'll do it.
Yeah. So when readers read your book, what's the most important thing that you want them to know after they finish your book that they've gotten out of this book, right?
Well, probably the most important thing that they could know is that God exists everywhere, even in your ball gown, even in your shoes, even in your makeup. God exists everywhere, and it's okay for you to find him there, even though you think that happens to be a frivolous venue to find it. He's there. So it's really to elevate the creativity to a spiritual level.
Very good point. Very good point. What is there any woman that you mention in the book that is probably the most influencer in your life?
The biggest influencer in my life is probably the most bizarre path to have found this particular person, and it has to do with the book of Ruth. Ruth, as the story went, Ruth was a daughter-in-law to a mother-in-law named Naomi. After her husband had died, which was Naomi's son had passed away, she chose to stay with her mother-in-law instead of going back to her actually palace, because she was a princess, back with her sister, back to where her origins were. And she went from a very well-established princess to somebody that had absolutely no money whatsoever, but she decided she's going to go with her mother-in-law. It happens to be that my ex-mother-in-law is the most powerful influence in my life. As a matter of fact, she's really my mother. I call her my Mama Donna. She has affected everything from the way I look at myself, to the way I look at family, to the way I look at art and culture, because she happens to be one of the most stylish women I've ever met in my life. She has, her jewelry exhibit exists in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She is just she's the most glorious, stylish woman I ever met. But what an unnatural path to find somebody like that.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
Thank you.
In closing, what is a message that you would give to your younger self
You were good enough. You just didn't know it. That would be my message. You were always good enough.
Wow. Wow, that's awesome.
And that's why I put that in my daughter instead of talking to my younger self, which I mean, it's nice to have, and it's in theory, it's, you know, it's a somewhat of a, you know, subconscious fantasy to be able to go back and, you know, talk to your younger self. So instead I went, okay, you know what? So whatever it is that I learned, let me put that on my daughter so that she has a better self-awareness, self-esteem, and acceptance of herself than I did. Then if I did, and if I do accomplish that, then I've done something right.
Awesome. Awesome. Tobi, the insights that you're sharing within this book and in this interview, I think are really important for women everywhere. And there's, for so many, they have counted on the outer beauty as the only beauty to be reckoned with. And the beauty of the inside of a woman and her heart and, you know, what she brings to this planet, I think is so precious. And so thank you for sharing your story. I hope that your health continues to be in such a great place.
Thank you.
Very blessed to have some good angels around you to take care of you and support you and help you to write this book. So a big congratulations to you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And we'll share your book in the post so that, you know, people can find your book and buy it. So congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank
It's
you.
an honor to interview you, my dear.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks.